Comments. Again, I want to thank folks that we have an agreement here to move forward. We need to do that. We need to get people working in this country and do it in a responsible fashion. And I believe that H.R. 662 will do that, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from West Virginia.
Excuse me, Madam Speaker. Excuse me, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 662, the Surface Transportation Extension Act of 2011. As my chairman has said, this legislation extends the federal aid to highway, public transit, and highway and motor carrier safety programs through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, 2011. I commend the chairman of the committee, Mr. Mica, for his bringing this bill before us today. I also associate myself with the remarks that he has just said in support thereof. I commend him for the listening tour that he has embarked around the country, as well as a few formal hearings thrown in his listening tour. This gives the country and new members of this body an opportunity to learn a great deal about what reauthorization of our surface transportation programs really means when it comes to jobs and when it comes to infrastructure, particularly within each member of Congress' congressional district. Extending these programs is absolutely critical to keep our economy on the road to recovery. Excuse me. And I strongly support this bill, as did my colleagues on both sides of the aisle when we passed it out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee 2 weeks ago by unanimous consent. I also want to support and commend our ranking member of the Highways and Transit Subcommittee, Mr. DeFazio, for his tremendous work in previous years and on bringing the current bill before us as well, and we'll hear from him in a moment. While I do strongly support this bill, Madam Speaker, what I cannot support are Republican attempts to gut investments that grow our economy. The Republican spending bill that passed 2 weeks ago will destroy over 300,000 good-paying transportation jobs, jobs lost in every state of this great country. What I cannot support is dangerous and draconian cuts across the board that invest in America's future, and these cuts coming just at a time that our economy is turning the corner. And what I cannot support is cutting the job-creating muscle of our budget, which investment in our infrastructure is, when we should be focusing on trimming the fat. In order to keep the pace with India, China, and other international competitors, we need to invest more, not less, in America's infrastructure. If we stop investing in the future, there's simply no way we can retire the debt of the past. The bill before us today is identical to legislation that the House passed last fall. Regrettably, at that time, Republicans objected to it, and the Senate Republican leadership insisted that the surface transportation programs expire on March 4th, 2011. I'm glad that my Republican colleagues have now come around and recognized the need to extend these vital programs through the fiscal year. I hope all members will vote for this bipartisan extension to keep America's economy moving. If Congress does not extend the surface transportation programs, the U.S. Department of Transportation will stop reimbursing states for expenditures on approved projects, and thousands of construction projects across the nation could come to a screeching halt. According to the DOT, a delay in enactment of this bill will shut down more than $800 million next week in highway reimbursements and transit grants to states and urban areas, endangering more than 28,000 jobs and multi-million-dollar construction projects across the country. This bill provides the certainty that the construction industry needs to continue the slow climb back from the greatest recession since World War II. It also enables Congress the necessary time to work toward passage of a long-term surface transportation authorization bill later this year. Enactment of this Extension Act will enable us to redirect our focus to developing a long-term bill that begins to address the nation's enormous infrastructure needs and will create millions of family wage jobs. I also today call upon the administration to join us in this effort to get behind this reauthorization bill and give it the necessary support from the executive branch that it needs. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting H.R. 662, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee who is One of the primary leaders in the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, the chair of the Highways and Transit Subcommittee, Mr. Duncan.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the gentleman for yielding me this time. H.R. 662, the Surface Transportation Extension Act of 2011, extends the highway transit and highway safety programs through the end of the fiscal year at the 2010 funding levels. It does not make any programmatic or policy changes, but instead only continues what is currently in law. I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of this bill with the chairman, my subcommittee vice chair, Mr. Hanna, ranking member Rahal, and subcommittee ranking member DeFazio. I want to commend Chairman Mica for his hearings and listening sessions that he's done all over this country. I had the privilege of attending several of those, and we heard from local and state officials all over this nation about their needs. Without this extension, these programs are set to expire on Friday. This extension will allow the highway and transit programs to continue to operate as the spring construction season kicks off. With unemployment in the construction industry at an all-time high, it is imperative that we extend the surface transportation programs through the end of the fiscal year. A front-page story in USA Today last week said that gas would soon go to $5 a gallon or higher. We need more domestic oil production in this country. We simply cannot allow or let environmental radicals drive the price of gas to $5 or higher. This will hurt many poor and lower income and working people and stop our recovery in its tracks. And this bill is important to our economy. Additionally, this extension will provide a level of predictability for state DOTs and local transit agencies to embark on major construction projects that will create jobs, and as I said, it will certainly stimulate the economy. I support the passage of this legislation and urge my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Oregon, the ranking member of our Highways and Transit Subcommittee, Mr. DeFazio.
Gentleman from Oregon is recognized for 5 minutes.
My thanks to the ranking member, the chairman of the full committee and subcommittee, and others who support this essential legislation. It's kind of sad that we're actually in this position. You know, we are looking at the 7th extension of the surface transportation reauthorization. Because of events in the last Congress, lack of support from the administration, opposition from others, and basically no action on the Senate side, we ground to a halt in reauthorizing this vital legislation. That's too bad. Had we taken a fraction of the money spent on the so-called stimulus and instead invested it in fully funding a 6-year surface transportation authorization, we could have created millions of jobs. Not just construction jobs, engineering jobs, manufacturing jobs, high-tech jobs, because we have the most effective Buy America requirements on our transportation acquisitions in this country. So, for instance, Oregon Iron Works building the first made-in-America streetcar in 70 years. All of the components that go into that are being made here in the United States of America. Very skilled workers, a very sophisticated product. You buy a bus, made in America, the tires, everything that's got to be made in America. You build a bridge, the steel has to come from America, except for a few loopholes in the law which we need to plug. If we began to deal honestly with our backlog, 150,000 bridges on the National Highway System are substandard in need of either significant repair or replacement. That's a lot of steel. That's a lot of work. That's also a lot of detours for trucks and others trying to use the National Highway System. Then you can look at the surface of our National Highway System itself, not just the bridges. 40% of the pavement is in fair to poor condition. You've all experienced that. Potholes, blowing out tires, breaking axles, causing higher fuel consumption, accidents, all sorts of problems. That needs to be taken care of. And then we have our transit systems. Actually, right here in Washington, D.C., they're killing people on Metro because they haven't the money to make the capital investments they need to have a modern light rail system in this city, and they're running cars that shouldn't be on the tracks anymore. So we are at really a crisis point. And I had taken to giving speeches when I chaired the committee about how we were falling to the third world status for infrastructure. And my colleague, Mr. Blumenauer from Oregon, actually came up to me after a speech once and said, he says, that's kind of, that's insulting and it's wrong. And I said, well, no, really, Earl, you know the problems. He said, no. He said, to say that we're third world. Most third world countries are investing a much greater percentage of their gross domestic product in transportation and infrastructure than we are in the United States of America. So I have taken to calling us fourth world. Formerly first world, vaulting over to the back of the line here to have the worst infrastructure of any modern nation on earth. It's not right. It doesn't serve our businesses or our communities well. The Obama administration did not take up this campaign adequately in the last Congress. I tried valiantly. They got hung up on the idea that we need to invest more money. We do need to invest more money. We had two commissions that were constituted when the Republicans controlled the House, the White House, and the Senate, and both commissions came to the same conclusion. We're spending about somewhere around 30 to 40% of what we need on an annual basis to have a 21st century transportation system. We're spending about 30% less than we need to maintain the current deteriorated rate of infrastructure in this country. We're not even maintaining the Eisenhower legacy. Come on, let's get real. Now, unfortunately, on the Republican side of the aisle, they've adopted an arbitrary rule, no new revenues for anything. Now, they ought to rethink that. Let's think about capital budgets. If you build a bridge, it lasts 100 years. We could justify borrowing money for that. Maybe we could justify raising some revenues to pay for that, perhaps from the oil companies, who knows, and put a lot of people to work and improve our infrastructure. But that's a non-starter so far. I hope that changes. If we look at this as a way to put America back to work, to make us more competitive in the international economy, we should be talking about rebuilding our infrastructure. It's the last place we should cut, and unfortunately, some cuts have already been proposed and made in transportation. That's not where we should be cutting, and those who would advocate further cuts are wrong. This is a trust-funded program. The program itself, 96% of the funding in this extension comes from the gas taxes every American has paid, the diesel taxes every trucker has paid, and the money that has been paid in other miscellaneous taxes. So we need this bill today. It's a starting point for a robust reauthorization later this year, and I look forward to working with the chairman and the new chairman of the subcommittee on that robust reauthorization. With that,
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to yield to another leader of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, the chair of the Rail Subcommittee, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, for a period of 3 minutes, Mr. Schuster.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 3 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding. Here we are again, seventh time for an extension, and I agree with my friend from Oregon who pointed out that this administration stopped us from passing a transportation bill under Chairman Oberstar and Mr. Mica was a ranking member. So here we are again, seventh extension on the highway bill. And as the chairman pointed out, this freezes the authorizing funds at FY10 levels, and it'll go until September 30th to give us the time necessary to craft a new transportation bill. I want to point out this is a clean extension. It's what's in current law. There are no policy or program changes, and this does not continue any stimulus funding. This extension, coupled with the CR, is going to reduce spending by about $1 billion. We're going to cut a reduction in transit new starts by over $400 million, discontinue highway appropriation earmarks by $900 million, eliminate unauthorized transit programs by over $200 million, and unauthorized Tiger grants by $600 million. So some significant reductions, and again, this current extension has to be passed by Friday. If we don't move this forward, we're going to feel it throughout the economy, throughout this nation. Today, this week, in the past couple of weeks, state DOTs have been letting contracts, putting bids out to get those bids in place, those contractors in place to be able to start the spring, summer, and fall contracting season. And if we shut down this program, there will be immediate furloughs and suspension of payments to states. And again, I would like to remind my colleagues, especially on my side of the aisle, that this is money that's being reimbursed to the states to work that's already been completed, to the tune of about $150 million a day is going out to the states to be able to pay those contractors to keep them working, to keep them building bridges and roads around this country. So we're in an extremely difficult time to put these payments in jeopardy. And again, it gives us the time to craft a transportation bill by September 30th to put out there. And when we do that, we're going to go through this transportation bill and cut and reform and change. Some of you may have saw the GAO report. I haven't looked at it completely, but I know there's many programs in the Department of Transportation across the government that duplicate effort, that quite frankly we don't know where the money's going, and some of these programs we're not even sure who's watching the spending of it. They can't account for it. So this transportation bill we move in September is going to do all of those types of things to improve what we do here in Washington and be a good partner to the states when it comes to building and maintaining a national transportation system. So I urge all of my colleagues to support this extension, and I yield back my
Gentleman yields
time.
back. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer.
Gentleman from Oregon, I'm recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Rahal. I come to the floor to support this extension. I appreciated the comments from the chair talking about the involvement with the Senate and the House together and the listening sessions that are taking place around the country. I am absolutely convinced that my friend Mr. Mica is sincere in his interest in infrastructure. I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Rahal, Mr. Duncan, Mr. DeFazio. There's a team in place, people who are interested in moving this forward. It's absolutely imperative that we extend the reauthorization through this construction cycle. And making the decision now, setting it at work, people can plan. It's not as good as a reauthorization by any stretch of the imagination, but it gets us through this construction cycle and it avoids an unfortunate situation. We're 7.5 years into a 6-year reauthorization. No one's happy about that. It's sort of the tenor of the times, however, because I was on the committee when we were struggling with 12 extensions in the last reauthorization. We need to do better. I am all for looking at squeezing out any inefficiency, examining programs to focus them, make them work better. But the simple fact is we need to spend more on infrastructure, not less. Those commissioned by the nonpartisan independent commissions that my friend Mr. DeFazio referenced with business leaders, environmentalists, government leaders at other levels, organized labor, very focused on this and documented the need to do more. The fact is that the American public is already paying a huge cost in addition to their road fees in wasting their time and damage to their vehicles and interrupting the flow of commerce. We're already paying the price. My personal goal as a member of the Budget Committee and Ways and Means is to work with the Authorizing Committee to have the resources. We have people from the Chamber of Commerce, organized labor, local governments, the AAA, truckers, bicyclists, the Women's Federated Garden Club of America, all coming together to provide support for the resources. And we need to work this dance out between the House, the Senate, and the administration to be able to have the resources so that the committee can put forth a robust bill for our future. Now, it's true, we're not going to reauthorize this bill in this week. We're not going to reauthorize it this spring. It'll be a stretch to reauthorize it before this extension expires. But the time to get busy is now. I appreciate the approach that's being taken by the committee, bringing people together. I am hopeful that instead of, may I have one additional minute?
Gentleman's
recognized.
Thank you. I am hopeful that instead of cutting transportation, which is envisioned in the CR, that would cost us 200,000 or 300,000 jobs at precisely the time that we need economic activity. I am hopeful that we can have a truce on the budget wars and acknowledge that we'll have a tight and focused reauthorization meeting with the wide range of transportation needs, deal with how we rebuild and renew America, get the economy started again, strengthen the quality of life in our communities, and make our families safer, healthier, and more economically secure. It starts by approving this extension today. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to yield 2.5 minutes to another outstanding member and a new member of our committee who has great local government experience as a former mayor in Pennsylvania, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Barletta. 2.5 minutes.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding. Madam Speaker, I rise today to urge the passage of H.R. 662, the Surface Transportation Extension Act of 2011. As I heard from my friends and neighbors back home, job creation and rebuilding our economy is the most important issue facing us. And transportation funding means not only construction jobs, but also for surveyors, heavy machinists, asphalt companies, grocers, hotels, and restaurants. Historically, studies have shown that for every dollar spent on investments in transportation and infrastructure, the gross domestic product grows by $1.59. And for every $1 million spent on highways, 47 jobs are created. Poor roads and congestions are costing my constituents. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials estimates that poor road conditions cost this country $355 billion annually. H.R. 662 is a clean extension that would fund ongoing operations through September 30th, 2011. Failing to extend this bill would hurt my district in terms of jobs, safety, and cost to my constituents in wasted fuel and lost productivity. The 2011 construction season is just getting underway. Any disruption in funding will delay the construction industry's ability to create jobs and complete much-needed improvement projects. With unemployment in the construction sector at a staggering 22.5%, we must pass the extension and put more hardworking Americans back to work. As a member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass a long-term legislation that will meet our future transportation needs. This extension gives Congress the time and ability to produce a smart, fiscally responsible bill. I urge support of 662 and yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen.
Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 3 minutes.
You're next.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank Ranking Member Rahal for the time, and I rise in support of H.R. 662, the Surface Transportation Authorization Act of 2011. Last Friday, I was in Millington, Tennessee, and I joined with Chairman Mica and Mr. Fincher on a transportation bill listening session. And Chairman Mica went all across the country listening to folks on the needs of transportation. We heard from all kinds of folks saying how important this is for the future of our country and getting goods to market and improving our infrastructure. The listening session focused on those needs of a new surface transportation authorization. And while this legislation is just another extension of Safety Lou, it's important we act quickly and extend surface transportation authorization before it expires on Friday. My hope is that H.R. 662 will be the final short-term extension Congress uses to extend Safety Lou, because this country needs a comprehensive long-term surface transportation authorization. And Chairman Mica has promised everybody on the tour that we're not going to have more extensions. We're going to pass a bill just like we did with the FAA reauthorization. 7 extensions was enough. We need to move this country forward and get those programs started. By continuing to extend Safety Lou and not passing a new authorization, Congress has created uncertainty in the transportation sector, which has limited the ability to invest in a crumbling infrastructure network. The importance of immediate passage cannot be emphasized enough. Not only will authorization create millions of quality jobs that are needed by Americans now and that have been neglected thus far in Congress, and provide states and MPOs a known dedicated funding stream, but it will also address the dire need for investment in the nation's transportation system. The Department of Transportation budget proposal of 2012, President Obama lays out a bold vision for surface transportation authorization. The President understands the United States will not maintain its mantle as the greatest nation in the world without an intermodal transportation system that enables America to compete in the 21st century economies. To that end, the President's called for $556 billion in a 6-year surface transportation authorization with up to $50 billion upfront economic boost to jumpstart job creation. Jobs. As the President said in the State of the Union, now is not the time to stand pat. This is why I believe we need to pass a surface transportation bill that increases revenue, makes a significant investment in maintaining existing infrastructure, and spurs development of innovative infrastructure networks such as high-speed rail and Airtropolis transportation systems. I appreciate Chairman Mica including in the Airtropolis language in the FAA reauthorization bill, and we look forward to seeing that same language included in the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Act, which was discussed in Memphis. As New York Times columnist Paul Krugman said, we must win the future, not eat it. I look forward to working with Chairman Mica, Subcommittee Chairman Duncan, the ranking members Ray Hall and DeFazio, and seeing that we pass a comprehensive surface transportation authorization that strengthens our infrastructure, spurs innovation, creates jobs, ensures safety, and wins the future. We are winners. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida.
I'd like to inquire as to the balance of time on each side.
The gentleman from Florida has 15 minutes remaining, and the gentleman from West Virginia has 14 minutes remaining.
I'll continue to reserve.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Speaker, I yield 5 minutes to the distinguished lady from California, valued member of our committee.
Gentlewoman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Ms. Richardson.
Madam Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 662, the Surface Transportation Extension Act. I'm hopeful that passing this extension will give us the adequate time that we all need on the committee to pass a full 6-year reauthorization. Last year, the committee initiated a very good start. In fact, we suggested spending a minimum of $500 billion of investment, and the administration recently released budget calls for approximately that same amount of $556 billion over the next 6 years. This includes an extra $50 billion to boost next year to provide for an immediate economic stimulus that we all know that we need. I heard one of my colleagues on the other side reference unemployment in construction. In my district, it's over 40%. So this has got to be done, and it's got to be done now. While the President's budget calls for a significant increase in our spending, we should all remember that it falls well short of the $225 billion per year investment that's really required that has been noted by sources, noted as the Transportation Policy and Revenue Study Commission. That was a bipartisan commission created by Congress to study this very issue. Our infrastructure is in state of disrepair, and congestion costs are costing us more than $78 billion per year. The quality of our transportation system is deteriorating. Almost 61,000 miles, 37% of our roads are in poor or fair condition. More than 152,000 bridges, 25% are structurally deficient. So when we talk about cutting, we're all mindful of the need to make adjustments and to be good stewards of these dollars. But we shouldn't cut for just cutting's sake. That is the wrong approach and the wrong thing to do. In my district, home to 4 major highways, a transit system, 3 airports, and a district that covers more than 40% of our entire nation's cargo, these congested roads and crumbling bridges are in dire need, and we need help now. A robust surface transportation reauthorization bill will help the people in my district and across this country where they need to go to improve safety and to get to work. Now, I was talking to some of my colleagues, and they were telling me that the former Mr. Schuster, when he was the chair of this committee, he worked on both sides of the aisle. I was told when we had that very difficult vote, he worked on this side, and we got forward a very successful bill. So in that spirit, when Mr. Mica mentioned that he was going to have his listening tours, I took him at his word. And so I've attended two, and I intend upon attending one more. And out of those listening tours, we've heard a lot of things from people. And one of the things I'd like to suggest that we continue is really an open discussion. An open discussion about HMT, an open discussion about TIFIA, an open discussion about really implementing a true national goods movement strategy, all of which my staff and I have worked and have brought forward very thoughtful legislation that I hope will be sincerely considered. The gas tax alone will not work, and I urge Mr. Mica to please work with us as we are working with you today. Many people asked me today, you're going to vote for this rule? I said yes, because I'm willing to work across the aisle with Mr. Mica to get this done, and Mr. Schuster as well. We're going to have to consider new ideas to be able to help institute this public-private partnership that we all know needs to be a part of this discussion. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 662, which should be really the building block of our 6-year reauthorization. That deserves bipartisan work, support of this Congress and the American people. Mr. Rahal, I appreciate all of the efforts that you've done so far. I know you're very committed to getting this done, and I look forward to all of the hard work in your new leadership, as well as also our ranking member, Mr. DeFazio. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back. Gentleman from Florida.
This time I have no further speakers, but I'll continue to yield to close.
Gentleman reserves.
To reserve to close.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm prepared to close on our side of the aisle. I do appreciate, once again, the work of Chairman Mica in bringing this extension to the floor of the House. As he has already noted, the 6th extension of Safety Lou. This will take us to the end of the fiscal year. It will give us the spring and the summer to work together, to continue to work together in the bipartisan spirit with which Chairman Mica has started his tenure as chairman of our committee. And I do look forward to continuing to work with him. I once again call upon the administration to work with us as well. Under the very capable leadership of Secretary LaHood, I'm sure that the administration will work with us if they'll just give us some proposals and put some concrete ideas, excuse the pun, on the table with which we can work in a bipartisan and bicameral measure. So this is a job-saving piece of legislation. It helps provide some degree, although a permanent reauthorization would provide much more degree of certainty to industry, to our construction industry, so that they can plan and invest in what is not short-term jobs, but good, long-paying, family wage jobs for our people. That's what we're talking about when we talk about investments in infrastructure. That's what we're talking about in this legislation, and I urge my colleagues, as I conclude, to support this in a bipartisan fashion. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida.
I yield myself the balance of our time.
Gentleman's recognized.
Each of us that are sent to Congress, Madam Speaker, have certain responsibilities. First, we have responsibility to our constituents in our districts, and then we're sent here, and by the grace of the good Lord, on our side, the steering committee, approval by leadership, and our colleagues, we get to do certain tasks, and mine is now to try to shepherd forward transportation policy for our country. That's an important responsibility, again, because we have millions of Americans who don't have jobs. Probably the hardest thing that I face when I go home or talk to folks across the country and in my district are people that have lost their homes, can't make their mortgage payments, are struggling, and they want to go to work. Most of them I've talked to, and they don't have an opportunity. Now, I know a new Congress has come, and that new Congress has sent a very clear message about spending, about conserving resources, assets and resources here. And I think the Congress gets it, and the American people have mandated that approach. We can also be here many times doing things that might prove a political point, but from time to time we have to step back and we have to do something for the very good of the country. I think this is one of those times that we have an important obligation. What will happen Friday if we don't act accordingly today and pass H.R. 662 is literally a disaster, because we will shut down all of the transportation projects across the land, any that have any connection to the federal government. Now, we've also said that we can't pass in continuing resolutions authorization for legislation. So that's the situation we find ourselves in today. We have a bipartisan agreement to move forward. We have an opportunity to actually expand and define the time in which we can accomplish the important work of government. And this isn't, some people say, well, oh, these are just transportation projects, but we go back to the very basic beginning of the nation, and they came together first for national security, but then the Founding Fathers, Washington, Jefferson, they were pretty smart, and they wanted also to be able to do infrastructure projects that transcended arbitrary political boundaries. I love to read about Washington and his vision to open the canals and the post roads, and some of the first work of the Congress was to authorize transportation and infrastructure projects for this nation, and the vision of people like Lincoln to connect the continent. So that kind of leadership has come from people in the past, and we have that responsibility today to move forward. So I think that people can go home after they vote for this and say, I did something positive. We acted in a fiscal responsible way. We're dealing within the trust funds, the money that people paid when they put a gallon of gasoline in their car. They paid 18.4 cents that went into the trust fund. We didn't spend recklessly, but we did act responsibly, and we're getting people working again. And we did it in a period of time, not the hiccup and the sporadic 6 past extensions, in a time frame in which we can actually get major infrastructure projects, people working again. So I think we can all take heart in a bipartisan effort that we've had here, that Congress can work, and the people's work can get done by people coming together. I know we still have disagreements on policy, and I've pledged to work on both sides. I even offered to buy the beer and pizza when we finish the listening tours. And with Senator Boxer, she wanted, I think, fruit drinks, and I'll even throw those in too, if we can come together and establish sound policy for the nation. So infrastructure can move forward, and we can do it. I really think we can do it. So we have 6 months of definition. We have 6 months to get the rest of the job done. But I'm confident that everybody here today can join, and we can make a difference for those people wanting us to be responsible and do what they sent us here for. So with that, I'm pleased to yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. All time for debate on the bill has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment printed in House Report number 112-20, offered by Mr. Mica of Florida.
Pursuant to House Resolution 128, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mica, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, this is a purely technical amendment, and review by both sides of the aisle and both bodies, we found 3 technical changes to correct drafting errors in H.R. 662. We want this to go to the President. We want it signed, and we want to make certain that it has all the technical provisions necessary in clear language. So the amendment adds 2 commas to the bill on page 12 and also another on 15. And on 15 it also strikes an authorization in the current extension that H.R. 662 failed to strike. So it's purely technical in nature, but we do want it correct, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Does the gentleman from West Virginia rise in opposition?
No, Madam Speaker.
Does the gentleman claim the time in opposition?
No.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise in support of the manager's amendment. The chairman has adequately explained it, and I fully concur and urge its adoption.
Gentleman reserved. Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Gentleman from Florida.
With that, I conclude and yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. The question is on the amendment by the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mica. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The gentleman from Colorado.
Madam Speaker, on that I request the yeas and the nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
A vote on an amendment to a bill to extend transportation programs for the rest of fiscal 2011. This includes federal highway aid, mass transit, and safety programs. This is what's called a manager's amendment, which groups together several amendments into one vote. We have more now from a reporter who's covering the highway programs bill.
Catherine Wolf of Congressional Quarterly. Why is the House considering another short-term extension of transportation programs?
Well, basically because they've been unable to enact a longer-term bill. This has been a problem since the last Congress, as a matter of fact.
What are some of the main points of contention preventing a full reauthorization from happening?
Well, right now there really is only one, which is that nobody has come up with any kind of viable way to pay for all the spending that people want. They've got proposals that spend lots of money, but no new revenue to back it up, which is exactly what made the bill die last year and caused all of these extensions.
So when did the last highway bill expire?
The last highway bill expired at the end of September in 2009, so it's been a while.
And what are the prospects for lawmakers coming to an agreement before the proposed extension expires at the end of September?
Well, actually, there was Secretary LaHood, Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood he gave a speech today to state DOT officials. And, he said basically we need to get this done. Congress needs to get this done this year, or else it's going to become involved in a lot of election year politicking, and probably is not going to get done until after that. So there's a lot of pressure, but there's also a lot of work to do. And I think that, all eyes right now are on Congress in terms of how much they're able to get done. We'll have to see.
Can you give us an estimate of the cost of the short-term extension and the kinds of projects that are being authorized?
I have yet to see really a very good cost estimate. You have to realize that basically all they're doing is extending. They're extending for a few months in this year what's previously been enacted, the previously enacted spending levels. So there's some kind of pro rata calculus that I haven't seen. I'm not exactly sure.
And what are some of the projects that are being authorized in this?
Well, it continues all of the current spending. So basically what's been in place since 2009 is being continued. It's, our highway programs, it's our transit programs, it's our port money, waterways, everything that normally gets funded in a surface transportation bill is just sort of being extended for another few months.
Catherine Wolf is with Congressional Quarterly. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This amendment vote continues here in the House. On the Senate today, the members passed a measure that extends federal funding of government operations for 2 more weeks through Friday, March 18th. The vote was 91-9. The House passed it yesterday. The current federal funding expires on Friday. The President is expected to sign it by the end of the week to prevent a government shutdown. After the Senate passed that temporary spending bill, President Obama called for Republican and Democratic congressional leaders to begin negotiations on legislation to keep the government funded for the rest of this fiscal year. In a statement, the president said Vice President Joe Biden would lead those negotiations between Republicans and Democrats. Congressional Quarterly reporting that Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell and House Speaker John Boehner have not said yet whether they'll accept the president's invitation. Here now are Speaker Boehner and Leader McConnell after that Senate vote today on the spending bill.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. You know, the American people want us to focus on creating jobs and cutting spending, and passage of this short-term spending bill, I think, shows that we're listening to the American people. I think today's Senate vote is a positive step in the right direction. American families are doing more with less, and there's no reason why the federal government can't rein in out-of-control federal spending. Because reining in out-of-control federal spending will, in fact, help create a better environment for job creation in our country. The House has now passed two bills. H.R. 1 that was passed almost 2 weeks ago. Yesterday we passed the short-term bill. And these two measures were necessary because the Democrats failed to do a budget and failed to do any appropriation bills to fund the government through September 30th. So passing the short-term bill gives Senate Democrats 2 more weeks to either consider H.R. 1 or outline their own plan for how we move ahead. Americans have the right to know where Senate Democrats plan to cut spending and fund the government for the rest of the fiscal year is. And so we're waiting for them, and hopefully we'll see something from them soon. Senator McConnell.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. I would only add that even though it was only a 2-week bill and a $4 billion reduction in spending, it is the first time I can recall in the time that I've been here our actually cutting spending on an appropriation bill. It's a small step, but a step in the right direction. And the question on your minds, obviously, is where do we go from here? Well, obviously, we need to know where Senate Democrats would take us from here. The House, as the Speaker's indicated, has passed 2 proposals, one to fund the government for the balance of the fiscal year, and then the 2-week CR. Now the question is, where are the Senate Democrats going to take us? What is their proposal? That would be the next step to try to resolve this for the balance of the year, and we look forward to hearing from the majority in the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, the White House just announced that the Vice President will lead talks. He's inviting you to talks that he would lead to deal with it. And Senate Democrats said that they actually are incorporating ideas of what they would be okay with in terms of cuts, and that the White House would present those cuts to you at this meeting. Is that sufficient? Would you come to the table with that in mind?
I think it's important to make clear that we've been in discussions with our Democrat colleagues for weeks. This isn't something new. And the House's position is we passed a bill. It's out there. And I think it's time for them to outline for us what's their position to keep the government funded. We've done our work in the House.
Mr. Speaker, adding to that, though, is there some suggestion here, though? You said you've been in discussions with your Democratic colleagues, that if the White House has been asleep at the switch here, we've even heard from some Democrats that they wish that the White House would get more involved in dovetailing on Dana's question here, that, you know, with these talks, would that sort of get this down the road to where you guys can forge a bona fide agreement?
The House position is perfectly clear. We cut $100 billion off the President's request for this fiscal year. We have no clue where our colleagues on the Senate side are.
Could I just add, we just heard about this suggestion of the people who were supposed to be invited to a discussion on the way in here. So we'll take a look at what they have to say. But obviously, if I were you, I'd be asking Senate Democrats how they feel about commencing such a discussion. And number two, at the risk of being redundant, what the Speaker and I are saying makes perfectly good sense. Where is the Senate Democratic proposal? Where are they on the question of how do we fund the government for the balance of the year?
Can I just be clear on what you're saying? You are saying that House Republicans will not come to the negotiating table with Biden because you've already passed a bill and that's the line. That's your...
That's not what I said.
Are you going to participate in the conversation?
Listen, this is me. I speak English. That's not what I said. I said the House has a position. Where's the Senate Democrat position? I have no idea where it is. How do you start a conversation where one House has spoken but the other House hasn't? And so, where's the starting point? I mean, we want to start with H.R. 1. Be fine with me.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate has passed their CR. You've got 2 weeks. From this point on, there's apparently a lot of unsteadiness out there about the threat of government shutdown, the economy, and Senate Democrats...
There's no threat of a government shutdown. I've been reading this for weeks, and I chuckle. You've heard me say at this podium for months, going back to last fall, now that our goal was never to shut down the government. Our goal is to cut spending. We're listening to the American people. They don't want the government shut down. They want us to cut spending, and that's what we're going to do.
So in the next 2 weeks, you're going to sit down with Vice President Biden and the Senate and work this whole thing?
All of us want to fund the government through September 30th. Our team wants to cut spending in a real way, and it's time to get to work. You know, if you give Congress 4 weeks, guess what? They'll take 4 weeks. You give them 6 weeks, they'll take 6 weeks. We've got 2 weeks. Let's get the job done.
Mr. Speaker.
Current federal funding expires on Friday, and now that the Senate has approved a 2-week extension, the President is expected to sign it to avoid a government shutdown. During the rest of this vote, we're going to hear from Jonathan Allen. He's a congressional reporter with Politico about the impact of a government shutdown.
Jonathan Allen is a reporter, congressional reporter with Politico, here to talk about the impact of past government shutdowns. Let's just begin because CRS, the Congressional Research Service, did a report about the shutdown of the federal government, looking at past government shutdowns, causes, processes, and effects. The House passed a 2-week extension last night. The Senate's going to vote on it this morning. It looks like it'll go to the President's desk, and the White House, the President will sign that. But they could be back here 2 weeks from now facing the same situation. So what can cause a government shutdown?
Well, basically what causes a government shutdown is when the government runs out of the authority to spend money. Every year Congress passes appropriations bills. There are a dozen of them. They fund the government for a fiscal year from October 1st of one year to September 30th of the next year. This past year, they weren't able to get all of those done, so they've been operating on what they call a continuing resolution or a continuing appropriations bill that does a short-term stopgap. And the current one keeps funding at fiscal 2010 levels through the first 5 months of 2011, or fiscal 2011. Right now, they're about to run out of that authority to spend money on March 4th. That resolution is expiring. They've got to extend it farther. You got the 2-week bill that looks like it's going to get done. And so when we're talking about March Madness with basketball in a couple of weeks, it's actually also going to be probably on Capitol Hill, members running back and forth from the TV set to try to figure out how to keep the government operating.
CRS, when they looked at this, they said, as you said, appropriations are not enacted into law. A continuing resolution is not established. A presidential veto over a pending CR, which is what happened in 1995 with former President Bill Clinton, funding gaps as a result of an expired CR, which happened in 1996. So bring us back to that situation. It happened over the Thanksgiving-Christmas break. What was the situation then?
Well, you had 2 shutdowns around that time, in 1995 and 1996. So the first one was a very brief 5-day shutdown. It was a more extreme shutdown of the government in a way because there wasn't as much preparation for it. I don't think there was as much expectation. It was the first time it had happened in quite a while. And then in 1996, you had a 21-day shutdown where it was it was more expected. There was so much brinksmanship going on. The two sides were aware of it. You had sort of a partial shutdown. Some of the functions of government had been funded, others had not. And that 21 days during that period, I mean, there were furloughs. Government workers weren't getting paid. Not all government workers, but a lot of government workers were either working and not getting paid or not working at all. And so ultimately they ended up getting back pay for that. The government's up and running. And I think one thing that's important to remember here, a lot of times the government shutdown idea gets conflated with what happens if we hit the debt ceiling, which is a different issue. The debt ceiling is a limit that Congress puts on how much the federal government's allowed to borrow, and we're running up on that deadline too. And so a lot of the times those two things get confused. If the federal government shuts down, you might not be able to go to a national park. You might not get the services that you're used to from the government. From the workers' point of view, they're not getting paid. If the government goes into default, if that debt ceiling is hit, you could see a crumbling of the American economy and the world economy. So they're sort of different scales. While the government shutdown is certainly not a good thing, I don't think in most people's view, it's not nearly the crisis and the catastrophe that we're talking about if we get to the debt limit increase not happening, which would be sometime between mid-April and late May.
According to CRS, the impact of past government shutdowns in 95 and 96, the overall cost of those shutdowns, $1.4 billion. 800,000 federal employees furloughed in 95 for 5 days, 284,000 in 96 for 21 days, 475,000 employees continued to work with unpaid status in the 1996 shutdown. What's different if this were to happen today than what happened in 1995 and 96?
Well, I think there are a couple of differences. I mean, certainly the government is a little bit better equipped to deal with this because they've seen it happen before in relatively recent memory. And in fact, the government had shut down a few times before 1995 and 1996. You know, early on in the Reagan administration it had happened. I think it happened once during George H.W. Bush's administration. But there's better preparation for this kind of thing to happen. The other thing, though, is the real political difference. And I think a lot of viewers are interested in who wins the shutdown battle. And you've got different dynamics. I mean, this Republican class that came in that wants to cut spending ran on that. They were elected on it. Nobody's been fooled by their agenda. Some of the institutions of Congress largely, and then tried to cut spending and went into a fight with President Clinton over that. And I think that the ground has really shifted over time. There's more of an appetite to cut spending now. And so the clear-cut winner of Bill Clinton versus Newt Gingrich in 1995-96, it might not play out again the same way with President Obama, Democratic president, and a new Republican Congress.
We're talking about the impact of past government shutdowns with Jonathan Allen of Politico. We're going to take your phone calls here in just a minute, but I want to give you an update on the situation in Libya. AP is reporting that a witness says a Libyan warplane struck near the scene of a battle between regime opponents and loyalists to Colonel Gaddafi at the eastern oil port. And also from AP this morning, it says that the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court says he is opening a formal investigation into possible crimes against humanity in Libya. You saw in the Financial Times this morning that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has said that the U.S. should move forward and others should move forward on prosecuting Colonel Gaddafi for the Pan Am 103 bombing, the Lockerbie bombing. We'll go to New York. Moses is a Democrat. You're up first. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, Moses. Go ahead with your question about the impact of past government shutdowns.
Yes, ma'am. I just have one comment. You know, the Democrats are going to get nothing done under the Republican regime because they don't like the president. I was watching in 2008. Mr. Boehner have make a comment on the Tea Party that under his watch he will not make the president get nothing done under his belt.
All right. Tea Party influence in this whole debate.
I think the Tea Party has been very influential in this, and particularly members of Congress, not just who personally identify with the Tea Party, but were elected at some level by the Tea Party or helped along by the Tea Party in their districts. It's all about cutting spending. And a lot of them they don't want to articulate this way because they don't want the brinksmanship. They don't want to be seen as shutting down the government. But I think a lot of them prioritize cutting spending over keeping the government operating. This is a group that is strongly anti-government, or certainly wants to see a smaller government. They obviously have a range among them. But the idea of shutting down the government for a few days is not as bad to them as the idea of having it operate at the same level. And they're having a huge influence on this debate. John Boehner cannot move the Republican conference, cannot move the House forward without at least the tacit agreement of a good portion of his freshman class.
All right, we'll go to an independent caller, Nathan in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nathan, you're on the air, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am 31 years old. I've been laid off for the last couple of years, and the confidence in America, well, in the 80s and the 90s, seemed like everybody was united. And today, everybody always wants to point the finger. And you know, me standing here watching the politics and how everybody is involved in money and wants to cut, how am I supposed to feel as, you know, every time I've tried to get a bridge card or anything, I get denied. And I understand everybody has to make sacrifices in America, but when is enough on our behalf?
Jonathan Allen, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's interesting. We've got a sort of dichotomy in our country. There's certainly a lot of people, when we hear about making sacrifices, a lot of people who feel like they already are making sacrifices. We have so many people unemployed in this country, other people underemployed. You know, the dollar's just not doing what it used to do, and the dollars just aren't as available as they are for a lot of people in this country. And I think in a lot of ways we've become accustomed to a lifestyle, a standard of living that's hard to keep going for a long period of time. At the same time, we've got people who are doing very well and who want to see government cut spending so that in their belief that the pain doesn't grow from where it is even more. So I think that there are obviously a lot of different perspectives on where we are right now, and certainly the gentleman feels like he's been sacrificing enough already, and maybe cutting back on government benefits is not the way to go.
We'll go to the Democratic line. Matt in Gallia County, Ohio. Welcome to the conversation, Matt. Hey, Matt. Oh, my fault there. Got to push the button. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. I sure appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to voice my opinion. I think the United States needs to quit being the keeper of the world. And when we got hundreds of thousands of people here in this country that's starving to death, and it's just like they don't care. And everything about overseas, they care about. Anything that happens in this country, it's the heck with. You take care of yourself or you do without, and nobody cares.
All right. Foreign aid, that's often an issue that comes up. People are upset about how much is spent. It's less than 1% of the federal budget, I believe. But it's on the chopping block this time around.
Right. I mean, I hate to minimize, tens of billions of dollars. I think it's in the 30s every year that we spend on foreign aid, but it's a very, very small part of the budget. It is on the chopping block for just the reason I think you heard from the gentleman. There are so many Americans out there who are watching not just what we're doing in the world, but all the things that are going on in the world. And I think we are often imputed to be doing more than we are sometimes. You see what's going on in the Middle East. There's so much attention to what's going on there, whether or not we're actually spending money on those issues.
Vote the yeas are for it.
Ms. DeLauro. Ms. DeLauro votes aye. Mr. Waxman. Mr. Waxman votes aye. Mr. Serrano. Mr. Serrano votes aye. Mr. Terry. Mr. Terry votes aye.
Do I read this after this? Without objection?
That's how you finalize the vote.
Can't do that.
Ms. Moore. Ms. Moore votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 419, the nays are 0.
Mr. Butterfield. Mr. Butterfield votes aye. Mr. Michaud. Mr. Michaud votes aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 422, the nays are 0. The amendment is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider it is laid upon the table. Pursuant to House Resolution 128, the previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
Bill to provide an extension of federal aid highway safety, motor carrier safety,
Mr. Speaker.
transit, and other programs funded out of the Highway Trust Fund, pending enactment of a multi-year law reauthorizing such programs.
House will be in order. The House will be in order. Members, if you please take your conversations from the floor. Members, please clear the well. For what purpose does the gentleman from Colorado rise?
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion to recommit it to desk.
Is the gentleman opposed to the bill?
I am opposed in its current form.
The gentleman qualifies. The clerk will report the motion.
Mr. Polis of Colorado moves to recommit the bill H.R. 662 to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure with instructions to report the same back to the House forthwith with the following amendments. At the end of the bill, add the following and conform the table of contents accordingly. Title V, Gravinia Island Bridge and Nick Arm Bridge rescissions. Section 501, rescission of Gravinia Island and Nick Arm Bridge earmarks. There are hereby rescinded all unobligated balances remaining available as of March 2, 2011 of contract authority provided or reserved for planning, design, or construction of Gravinia Island Bridge, Alaska, or Nick Arm Bridge, Alaska, under the following provisions of law. 1. Section 144 F1A II of Title 23 United States Code. 2. Item number 14 of the table contained in Section 1302E of Safety TLU 119 Statute 1205. 3. Item numbers 406, 2465, 3323, and 3677 of the table contained in Section 1702 of Safety TLU 119 Statute 1256. 4. Item numbers 2 and 10 of the table of content of the table contained in Section 1934C of Safety TLU 119 Stat 1405. Section 502, Prohibition on Funding of Gravinia Island and Nick Arm Bridges. None of the funds made available by this Act may be used to plan, design, or construct the Gravinia Island Bridge, Alaska, or the Nick Arm Bridge, Alaska.
House will be in order. Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, usually when something is killed, it stays dead. But just like in a bad zombie movie, some bad earmarks refuse to die and return to life time and time again as wasteful spending. That's what's happened with this bill and what this amendment corrects. There isn't an American taxpayer out there who hasn't heard of the Bridge to Nowhere. The Bridge to Nowhere has become synonymous with government waste. What Americans may be shocked to find out is that a significant portion of the $454 million that Congress provided through 8 separate earmarks and safety lieu is still available for Alaska to build these bridges. We fix that with this amendment and eliminate these return from the dead earmarks with this amendment to save taxpayers money, restore credibility to Congress. Although Congress has tried to stop these bridges to nowhere by giving Alaska the authority to use its earmark funds, and Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentlemen will suspend. The House will be in order. Gentlemen may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, Alaska has still used $71 million of federal funds provided under safety lieu to continue work on 2 bridges to nowhere. Sadly, Alaska's earmarked bridges to nowhere, like zombies eating the brains of taxpayers, refuse to die. Frankly, like most Americans, I thought federal funding for the bridges to nowhere was a thing of the past. ABC News reported in 2007 the bridge to nowhere is gone. This bridge has collapsed even before it was built after an onslaught of angry editorials, furious anti-pork citizen groups, and caustic jokes on late-night TV. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the zombie has climbed from its grave and is terrorizing American taxpayers to the tune of $180 million in deficit spending to build 2 bridges, one of which is a bridge that, from an engineering perspective, is comparable to the Golden Gate Bridge to an island with 50 people. Now, but wait, we're not calling it an earmark because we've abolished earmarks in this Congress. So instead, we're taking Republican earmarks from previous sessions of Congress and calling them something else. Is that the new spending plan? Is that how we're going to balance the budget? Now, many Republicans in this body have used the bridges to nowhere. Mr. Speaker, the House is not in order.
Gentlemen, it's correct. The House will be in order. The gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. Many members of this body has used this as an example of wasteful